listing on a cold call. It's still sitting there because the seller is not budging, doesn't want to budge. I did, instead of like an open house, because he didn't want a lot of, I did like a luxury buyer tour just to kind of attract maybe developers, which I did, investors. So I guess at this point, do you feel, I guess my question for you, do you feel like we're going to be heading soon into a buyer's market? And how do I approach a seller who's on the fence about the current market conditions or what we can expect in like the next 6 months or so?
Here's what I would propose you doing, and this is a very common script that I use when it comes to what's going on. See, there are two main opinions right now on what's going on in the real estate market. There are equally qualified and equally smart people, Ivy League educated people that are on both sides of this subject. Now, one side of the subject, although in the last month, I think they're starting to change their tune, and I'm seeing it. I mean, even the National Association of Realtors says that we're in a shifting market. I mean, they're never saying that kind of stuff until it actually is. Usually things are in the rearview mirror for them to come out and say something. But one side of this equation is we're solid. Yeah, it's shifting. It's not going to affect prices. Prices are going to continue to go up. They're going to go up. They're going to leave the atmosphere, go past the moon, on through Pluto, and off to catch up with the Voyager spacecraft, right? That's one side of an opinion. Now, the other side of that opinion, again, equally qualified, just as smart in the business, they're like, whoa, look, man, this is going to be gnarly. And this is going to be more gnarly than gnarly has ever been. And so you better wear your seatbelt because things are about to get real. Now, here's how now you might want to reframe this to your personality. This is actually how I would normally explain it to somebody. And then I would go to them. I'm like, are you familiar with those 2 points of view? Would you agree those are 2 points of view? And they would say, yes, I do agree with those 2 points of view. Okay, do you think that both of them can be right at the same time? Well, no, I don't think both of them can be right. Okay, so you would agree that regardless of who's right, one of them is going to be wrong. Yes. Okay, well, Mr. Seller, have you ever considered that right now, if we sell your home, even at market value, even with rates going up and even with what the minor shift is, there's still a 100% probability that you're going to sell your home and you're going to net more money in the history of this property. I mean, there's a 100% probability still. However, and this is where language matters. Notice how I said there's a 100% probability right now. Right now, there's 100%. Now, that's what they're going to hear. But then we're going to be like an infomercial. You know those infomercials when they're selling it, they overemphasize, the back pain. Look, sales, 50% of sales is going to be theatrics. So the next part is like, look, you have a 100% probability that if we sell it now, then you're going to beat the rush. You're still going to sell it at historic prices. But there's also a 50-50 gamble. You're taking a 50-50 gamble. You're risking your equity that you might chase the market down the longer we wait and hold off and see what happens. Because if anything, if one of the things that we learned in the Great Recession, and I'm not saying you, and you can tell them this, I'm not saying that we're going to have anything like that. I don't know. But, the future's unwritten. But what I do know is that it's much better in a shifting market to be a day early, a week early, a month early, a year early than a day late. Because once you start chasing the market down, that's when the market starts flooding with people. So my question is to you, Mr. Seller, what will you do if in fact the market shift is fast, is quick, and you start chasing the market down? What would you do? Would you just keep it? No, I can't keep it. It's way too big. It's 7,000 feet. I need to downsize. Okay, well, look, the last Great Recession, it took 10 years to bring back the values. Or would you be willing to keep it for at least a decade? No, I don't want to keep it for a decade. I told you I needed to downsize. Okay, so what would make sense to you to get this home sold before we see this market shift? Because the feds are saying that they're going to start unloading their balance sheet. One, they're going to start selling their mortgage-backed securities. So there is no other buyer to that. And they're going to stop printing money. All of that's is not only going to rise rates, but we're also in a high inflation area. And, we're at 8.3% now. Some of the experts are saying that we could very easily see more than 10. So, what do you think is going to happen with the value of your home if that happens? Well, I think that I think prices are probably going to come down. Yeah, I think they would too. So what's your risk tolerance? So a lot of this is just really, I don't know if I've said this in this course yet, because, I always promote people to focus on their own primary market area and know everything about everything about everything. Like, for instance, if I went back into production, I wouldn't focus on LA. I wouldn't focus on Northern Orange County. If I were to, my backyard would be Southern Orange County. That's where the highest price points are. But even that would be more of an extended area. There is enough business going on in Irvine right now. Typically 100 properties sell each month. I mean, if all I did was just get one property at 1.5 million median sales price in Irvine, and I did 15 those a year, I don't need to go 20 miles away. What I need to do is make sure that everybody knows me, that I'm the expert, that I know everything about everything about everything about everything. And that's what I need to know about that market. But the reason why I share that is because when you're the expert of an area, you know the metrics of an area. And to the seller, to a buyer, to an average consumer, all they are is just numbers on a screen. It's up to you as the professional to give dialogue to those numbers. And it's not, I know something's really going awry in the market because all my friends who are in mortgages, they've turned into economists. So every Facebook post, every video that they do, they're like, hey, there's nothing to see here. There's nothing to see here. Move along, people, move along. There's nothing to see here. And so that's when I know that people start freaking, in the broker meetings, all these lenders are showing up. I have lenders calling me and I'm not even in production. They're just going through the list of agents and just trying to build those relationships. So they're freaking out. And I don't blame them. I would be too. But we're in real estate. So they've had the heyday. They get to sit in their cushy office and do these loans. But you know what? Because we're staying the tried and true and we're sticking with real estate, as long as the market's moving, if it's going up or down, we're okay, because people need to buy homes. People need to sell homes. So I would encourage you to just look and see what's going on in the market, have that conversation with them, have a real conversation with him, and just say, what would you do if things go south?
Okay.
And then eliminate his objections. So would you just keep it? Because that's the next one. What would you do if things go south? I would just keep the property, beat them to the punch. Be that person that's looking out for their best interests. Because, one of the things about asking questions is, yes, getting the business and qualifying the business, but it's also asking those questions to dequalify your business too.
Right?
Making sure it's not a right fit. If this guy thinks that he's going to get, 20% over market value, if he didn't get it 3 months ago, he's not getting it now. Definitely not now. And it just, I just find that a lot of real estate professionals, they don't have those type of, they're tough conversations. They're tough conversations to have. But when you just break it down into the bare common denominators, it makes it that much easier. Does that make sense? Does that help you?
It's excellent. Thank you. The issue with him is I've offered, I have a couple of lenders I work closely with, and he doesn't want to talk to a lender. He doesn't want to hear it. He's had 2 verbal offers before they were put on paper, and he's just like, well, forget it. If it can't go, I'll just keep it. So all of a sudden, it's one of those sellers.
So, and also we have to make sure that the motivation that he's saying is the true motivation. Sometimes you have to dig deeper.
Right.
For me, I always say that the person who wins a negotiation is the one who's willing to walk away, or the one who is perceived that they're willing to walk away. And so whenever I'm in a negotiation, I just have such a very lackadaisical, I just don't give a crap approach. I may give a crap. I may want to see this work, but if someone were to come up to me, I'm like, well, God, if I don't get what I want, I'll just keep it. Because that's a negotiation thing. So you have to be very adept on listening to what they say and being focal. But here's the thing, in my opinion, if he has 7,000 square feet and he wants to downsize, that means that even though he wants to keep it, he wants to keep it short term. My thought process. I think that anyone, and I might be proven wrong on this, I think that anybody who has any type of thought that they want to sell in the next 1, 2, or 3 years, that's kind of long term, right? I
Right.
think that they would be foolish not to consider just getting out of Dodge now. I have friends that have sold their property and are renting on purpose. Because in California, if you buy a property, your payment's 13 grand. If you rent the property in the same neighborhood, it's like 5. There's a big thing. So they've sold at the top of the market. Their position is that things are going to shift, because if you look at the history of every market, there's peaks and troughs, right? There's no market that just continues to go on to Voyager. So they've sold, I have 2 friends that did this. They've sold it. They don't care what anyone says, their perception is their reality. And now they're renting, and they're taking a wait and see approach, because their position is, unless jobs, income, and wages increase, then prices can't go up no matter what you do, because of the affordability of people. And when you throw in inflation on top of that, we're at $120 a barrel on oil. That's the most it's been since 2008. It's very likely that this summer we could see that peak 150. I mean, none of us have seen what $150 oil looks like. So they're saying, hey, I think it's a pretty safe bet for me to sell now, max out my profits, and take a wait and see approach and see what's going to happen, and then re-enter later. Now, here's the thing: they're not wrong. Neither is the person who takes the other side, right? But that's really kind of my point of view on it. I'm share my point of view with you guys more so than I would the consumer. I just say, look, one party says this, another party says this, someone's going to be wrong. Here's what's happens going to be. If you're right, you might make a little bit of the same money, but here's what happens when you're wrong, if you're wrong. But it's your risk to take. How risk tolerant are you?